Hello everyone, I am Jai Kirubalan from BCS 6th Sem, and today my web programming seminar topic is on Internet Protocol. So let us see the contents of Internet Protocol, what are the types and what are the classes we use in Internet Protocol. So let us go into this slide. So let us see the history of IP address. The Internet Protocol technology was developed in 1970s to support some of the first research computer network. And today, the IP has become a worldwide standard for home and business networking as well. And network routers, web browsers, email program, instance program, messaging softwares all rely on IP or other Internet Protocol layered on the top of IP. Essentially, all home computer network use IP version 4, which is called as IPv4. But an increasing number of educational research institutions have adopted the latest version called IP version 6, that is IPv6. So, what is an IP address? An IP address is a unique address that identifies a device on the internet or a local network. IP stands for Internet Protocol, which has a set of rules governing by a format of data sent with the internet or a local network. An IP address is a string of numbers separated by periods. An IP address are expressed as a set of four numbers. An example address might be like 192.158.1.38. Each number in the set can range from 0 to 255. So the full IP address range goes on like 0 to 255. For all four set of address, the range is from 0 to 255. An IP address cannot be random. They are mathematically produced and allocated by Internet Assigned Number Authority, which is called as INA. So basically, how do you get an IP address? An IP address ranges was controlled by INA, that is Internet Assigned Number Authority, and roots go back to 1972. Apparent was in use, and today a part of ICANN. And INA grants IPs to Relational Authority. American Registry of Internet Numbers may grant you a range of IPs, and you may then advise routes to your new IP range. They are now secondary markets and auctions. So what is IP addressing? IPv4, that is 32-bit address, usually which is written in dotted notation. For example, we see that 192.168.21.76. And each number is a byte. Byte is nothing but 8 bits, and which is stored in big Endian order. So in IPv4, there is a form procedure, that is, uh, here we can say that 192, which is in decimal form, therefore it is converted into hexadecimal, that is C0. And again, the hexadecimal value is again converted to binary value. So C0, which is converted into binary value. Therefore, this procedure is followed by all the notations, that is all the addresses. Okay, now we are coming to versions of IP address. There are basically two types of there are two versions in use at present: IPv4 and IPv6. So coming to IPv4, it is as 32 binary bits to create a single unique address on the network. An IPv4 address is expressed by four numbers separated by dots, and each number is a decimal base 10 representation for 8-digit binary base 2 numbers, also called as octal. So here in IPv4 address, it is separated by dots. So now the IPv4, which is then converted into a binary number. So 172, we can see that it is converted into binary number. And again, it is separated by dot. Coming to IPv6, which is one 128 binary bits, whereas IPv4 is only 32 binary bits. Now, IPv6 is 128 binary bits to create a single unique address on the network. And IPv6 address is expressed by 8 groups of hexadecimal, which is base 16, and number separated by colon. Whereas in IPv4, we saw that it is separated by dot, whereas in IPv6, it is separated by the colon. A group of numbers that contains all zeros are often omitted to save space, leaving a color separated to mark the gap. So here again, we can take an example of this IPv6 address 2001, which is again means again represented as a binary number. So again, whereas in IPv6, we see that the address is separated by the dots, whereas in IPv6 we see it is separated by the colon, whereas in IPv4 it was in dot. The separator was the dot. Here the separator was the colon. Now coming to the type of IP address. There are 4 types of IP address: public IP address, private IP address, static IP address, and dynamic IP address. So coming to public IP address. A public IP address is an address where one primary address is associated with your whole network. In this type of IP address, each of that are connected devices the same IP address. Here in the IP address, in the public IP address, one IP address is given, which is primary for all network. This is called public IP address. Whereas coming to private IP address, which is unique IP number assigned to every device that connects to a home internet network, which includes devices like computer, tablets, smartphones, which is used in your household. It is also likely include all types of Bluetooth device you use, like printers, smartphones, devices, and TVs, etc. So here, for each household, that is for each devices, for each electronic device, in private IP address, which is generated to each and every household network. Now coming to dynamic IP address. Dynamic IP address always keep changing, and it is temporarily, and it is allotted to a device every time it connects to a web. And dynamic IP address or another important type of internet protocol address, and it is active for a specific amount of time, and after that it automatically expires. Here the IP address keep changing. It cannot be constant, and it is also a temporary address. Now coming to static IP address. A static IP address is an IP address that cannot be changed, which is constant all the time. A dynamic IP address will be assigned by a dynamic host configuration protocol server, and which is the subject to change, whereas in static IP address, which is constant, which is assigned once and that stays same over the years. And this type of IP address also helps you to procure a lot of information about a device. Whereas in dynamic, we see that the IP address keeps changing, and which is not constant also. And it is for temporary purpose. Whereas the static is for lifetime, it cannot be changed, and it cannot be changed over the years. Now coming to IP address class. Here the class is divided for some of the networks. That is, classes are divided into 5. Class A, which supports the address ranges here. We can see here the address ranges here. The class A, which supports 16 million hosts on each of 127 networks. Over 16 million hosts, which performs a class A, that is address range of this. Now coming to class B, which supports 65,000 hosts on each of 16,000 network. Here, the range is between here to this. Now coming to class C, which supports 254 hosts on each of 2 million network. And the range is here. And class D, the range is here, which is reserved for multicast groups. And class E, the range is here, and which is reserved for future use or research purpose. That is, this particular class is reserved and which cannot be used at present. It is for future use, and it can be used for research and development purpose. So this is all about internet address class, internet protocol class. So this is all about internet protocol address, simply called as IP address. We saw what history of IP address, what is IP address, what are the type of IP address, the structure of IP address, and the classes. So thank you.